Jack Russo. We're broadcasting live from downtown Palo Alto. I've been lucky enough with various folks helping me establish my own little radio room here at Computer Law Group. We're doing the Valley Current show. This is one of the earliest shows. In fact, Joe was nice enough to do a show with me, and now we're doing a follow-on show where we've brought in some great talent that's going to talk about how Joe can scale up the talent side, because you may recall from our last show that Joe was talking about Bundle Select, and we have Joe in the studio as well, and Andrew Gardiner, who's an expert on finding the right talent. I'll introduce them in a minute, but let me just say a few words about the context of this. We started last year a Starting Something series. Joe was nice enough to invite me in. We did many shows on that. This year we have done a new series called Growing Something. And in the course of Growing Something, because I got tired of doing the commute to your office, and I met Andrew, and he said, I got a bunch of equipment I'm going to throw out in a yard sale. And at the time I said, we're looking for equipment. So literally we kind of put two and two together, and Andrew, with Joe's help, and really my wife's, sweat and blood and tears, pulled together the little room. It's kind of a broom
closet.
Well.
It's beautiful.
But then Andrew, to give him credit, he brought in a sound guy that muffled up all the street noise, because we're right in downtown Palo Alto, and you know how busy it is down here. It's like being in Manhattan. The sirens playing and so on. Of course, the Apple Store is getting robbed daily by different criminals. People walking out with $40,000 worth of equipment in 4 seconds. I mean, they put all that equipment out there. Apple it's store? Right at that Apple Store. They have guards in front now. At some point, you think they're going to have Israeli machine gun people or something. But we're here in downtown Palo Alto, and we've recreated, based on everything Joe taught me over the last couple of years, our own little podcast booth. And Joe has been nice enough to come on to help me debug it, which we did in the last episode. And now in this episode, we're bringing in some talent. We pulled Andrew in. He's local. He's in Menlo Park, so he can come over. Because Joe is, and I'm going to introduce now Joe CUCCHIARA, who's sort of my partner in crime in this podcast series. And Joe is scaling up Bundle Select, and you've had a great success story. And Andrew is an expert on helping people find talent as you scale up. So this is sort of the Silicon Valley magic of people helping people get things that seem highly improbable off the ground. Right. Both of you have been in the bathroom here. We have a 50-year, not together, not together. Although there are two stalls.
I just heard all the listenership just dropped off.
I know, but in the bathroom we have some pictures of the 50-year anniversary of the moonshot, and we put it there to inspire our people. And I haven't done it yet in the women's room. But I've been thinking there really should be a duplicate of these big missions that then become reality. Right. As you said, going from ideation, the bare bones idea, to the reality of making something happen. A lot of steps along the way, and a lot of stupid, crazy things can happen. And you told a story about the original way we met, which was the airline business invention that you made. It's a great story. And it should have really happened, but it didn't, because 9/11 happened, and a lot of things changed as a result of that. Now, as I said, you do DNA testing to kind of get into the airport. It could have been different. I remember the days when you just walked on a plane. It was amazing. It was so great. Nowadays, it's a complete horrendous mess, but people still live with it. But we want to get to the scaling up, because, Joe, you mentioned in your last little piece there in the last episode that when you get to the point of starting to scale, you got to add people. Right. But you got to find the right people. And that is an immense challenge. Right. And you're not an expert. I'm not an expert. And here's the expert. Right. So, Andrew, with that big roll-up, tell us about the hierarchy, not hierarchy, but the hierarchy, and what you do.
Thank you, Jack.
Sure.
So what I do, and I've tried to distill it down, is I help companies like Joe's find and hire, engage with the right people.
Right.
And more often than not, the people that aren't looking. Like employers realize, hey, we're going to get the people that are going to, they call it spraying and praying.
Right.
But
Right.
how do we really find people that, to your point, the difference makers, people
Yes.
that are going to help us realize our idea and get us to that next level? So
Yes.
the only other interesting thing about what I do, which I really like, I love it actually, is it stands to reason if I'm helping employers hire the right people, then in theory I'm helping people get the right career.
Beautiful thing.
Yeah,
It's a
so
beautiful thing.
that's what I
and
do.
you do it for veterans too, as a pro bono mission, which I really applaud. I mean,
Thank
man,
you.
if that doesn't make the chicks go crazy when you're in a single car, let's strike that. Let's strike. We can edit that out.
If we could just have the bulb go on over my head when you're
No,
cutting this
actually,
up.
I'll tell you the reason I said that, because I have one of my old partners in a law firm that, as people know, I was at Davis, Stafford, Kelman and Fenwick, that became Fenwick and West, great law firm, and one of the original partners, Blake Stafford, left the firm, recently retired from the firm. He was the original founder, and what he has done, which is a very unique thing, he used to ride his bike from Palo Alto to, originally the office was in Palo Alto, then they moved to Mountain View, so his bike ride got longer. He got actually more fit as a result. But as he got older, because he's been there for a long time, in fact, probably the last man standing of the original partners. So we're talking, close to 60 years, like a long time, 6 decades of practice law. And that's a big thing, still be alive and talk about it. It's a really good thing. And a lot of lawyers don't even make it to 50. 50 years of practice is a lot. So he started taking Uber from his home in Palo Alto to Mountain View and back. But he decided, because he could afford it, he decided to take Uber Share, or Uber whatever is the one that
you share rides.
The
Yeah,
share,
it's
the
a little
multi-
cheaper.
the cheap, way cheaper.
Right.
So that ride, let's say it's $15 from Palo Alto to Mountain View, it's like $6. But they're going to pick up a bunch of people along the way.
Right.
He enjoyed
I
the
think
pickup
it's great.
scene. Not that he was picking up women. He's happily married. He's got a beautiful young wife. I'll share the show with her and him, and they'll appreciate it. But the kicker is, he said to me, Jack, he said, it really makes a difference. You meet interesting people. He was getting clients. And he was saying to people, you should get out there and mingle. Those people who are frugal with money are often founders of companies.
That's the hell of a marketing strategy.
Think about it. So here's the
Yeah.
kicker of the story, and it ties into what Andrew's saying. He got into a car, and some really beautiful younger woman got into the car. I hope Blake's wife's not going to be upset with this. And he started having a conversation with her, and she spoke Spanish, and he speaks Spanish. She's multilingual, he's multilingual, and they started talking, and she's maybe looking for a new executive position. So he called me up, said, you deal with startups all the time, they're always scaling. Go interview her. So I interviewed her, sat down with her, talked to her for a few minutes. And I said, you really need to talk to Andrew.
Oh, is that Kathy?
Exactly.
Oh.
Exactly.
I'm like,
Exactly.
oh.
So I said, I got to plug you into Andrew. So you then met with her, and we'll keep it very abstract and high level to save people from saying, why did you use my name without my permission? I'm stolen my work and so on. But conceptually, that's the invisible hand of Silicon Valley at work.
Right.
And Uber does not currently even get that there's a potential business there. It's a huge idea. Imagine putting a whiteboard in these cars, or a screen.
Could you imagine?
And like you said, you can squirt information on the screen. Oh, you want to see more about myself? Here's my LinkedIn. Now, people just hand phones to each other, and they hand iPads to each other, and we flip this stuff around. But imagine that there's a brainstorming element to an Uber or Lyft, or there's lots of other companies too that are doing ride sharing in one form or
Almost
another.
like a customized networking.
People years ago, look, when I grew up in New York, and I used to take the train to Manhattan until I started to say, hey, I don't like going on the train. I'd rather get a bike ride in. I would bike like 14 miles from Brooklyn uptown 82nd Street. I was buffed, man. I was a thin guy. I'll show you pictures of me. That ride was a 30-mile round trip. Wow. I did like an hour and a half each way. That was 3 hours of bike ride. But it would take me a couple of hours, or an hour each way by the train. Sometimes the train got delayed. So I was like, a half hour more, I'm fine with it. And I didn't meet as many people doing that.
No networking.
There was no networking. So on the train, you could meet some people. Maybe you talk to them, maybe not. That environment changed. But in the a captive audience at the back of a car and someone's pulling up right next to you, I don't think they ever do 3 people. I don't think they pack the car that much. I think it's more like you and somebody else, and then they drop the person off, and they pick someone up. They're sort of sensitive. They're not going to overload the car. But you have a potential of a one-on-one conversation. And as I've said in one of the shows, I remember back in the day, there were salespeople that would say, if they were in the middle of a selling cycle, and the chief technology officer that's buying all this equipment would say, hey, I got to catch the flight to New York. I can't talk to you. The guy would buy a ticket and go on the flight with the guy.
Really?
Yes,
That's
to make the
brilliant.
sale. So tell us what you think about how this talent selection process, because there's these bluebird ways, like me making a referral through a referral, but tell us how you go about finding talent, because you're really well plugged in, right? You have a huge Rolodex.
Well, thank you,
Huge,
Jack.
sure.
So, 2 things. One is there's the organic way, the way you just described, and I love that. You got to show up. I forget who said it, but you know, if you don't show up, nothing will happen.
Yes.
And if you show
It
up,
was Woody Allen who said half of being successful or half of doing a job is just showing up. Like, you got to show up, right?
so there's that way, and people want to help. I'm never not amazed. Like this person we're talking about, lovely young lady, very bright, very would asset to anything, and she's got this tunnel vision silo mindset, like, oh my God, it's going to be so hard. Whereas meanwhile, it's like, no, you don't understand. People want to help you.
Right.
So there's that. Then,
It's almost like a law of attraction. Right? It's almost at that level.
Very much so.
Right.
And then what the employers do to flip that over, the more, let's call it programmatic, is, there's sourcing tools, there's referring tools, there's matching tools.
So they're looking for automation where maybe none can exist.
Very much so.
Right.
But the interesting thing about LinkedIn is now, I'm oversimplifying, but now everybody has access to everybody. So my clients say, Andrew, I don't need more candidates. I need better candidates. I need smarter candidates, and I need fewer candidates. So there's some CRMs out there with artificial intelligence and machine learning gadgetry that I can prototype. I can send them Jack Russo's profile or Joe's profile and say, I want 10 people like this.
More like this.
And I want you to run them through your CRM or your applicant tracking system or your database. It works for veterans, it works for women, it works for engineers. And I want 10 Jack Russo's. And then I want you to rank them. And so that really streamlines the process. And then companies get kind of creative and cutesy about how they're engaging with these people. And then on the flip side of that, in parallel with that, they do all have career portals, and I can go to the website and look up the jobs and look at videos. This is what it's like to work at Google. This is what it's like to work at Splunk.
Right.
And the employers can see who looked at what, how long did they stay on the site, where did they drop off. There's a heat map. It's insane. So really, the caveat, or not the caveat, but the real intention behind all this stuff is they want to know who's coming from where. So they can eliminate the wasteful stuff, in other words, the spray and pray, or post and pray in this case, and just get 5 really hyper qualified candidates, and then I'll it's the Marketo approach to talent acquisition.
So what's interesting to me, Andrew, is you go through that approach. That at one point, the resume is the resume, and then sitting down with someone and actually going face to face and having some dialogue.
Yes.
Because the thing that's always interested me, which I admire companies that continue to hire talent and the right talent.
Yes.
Is that you could have the best looking resume in the world, right?
Right.
But you maybe sit down in front of them and you don't interview well.
Right.
Or maybe you're a jackass, or maybe you don't come across well, and maybe those people don't care. Is that what they do? They kind of narrow the field and then bring them in and then make their kind of gut assessment on that?
That's accurate. It is a process. It's not an event. But the resume is a tool, or the LinkedIn profile. It's a tool to get you into the funnel, as it were. And then after that, they do a deeper dive, and they do reference checks or their phone screens, and then they bring them in and talk to them. Employers are more willing to forgive some of the soft skills if you can get past the blocking and the tackling of the. It's interesting because if you don't do more than just posting your resume, sometimes I get approached like, hey, can you put me in touch with the recruiter to help me? It's like, you can't. No one's going to advocate for you. You need to learn how to advocate for yourself.
Interesting. So there's 3 things from this little conversation that I get that are kind of interesting, which is the analogy I think of is the tools are like this fishing nets, but the problem is it's capturing too many fish, so the net is not fine enough. Like you have this net and it's grabbing all these fish, but most of the fish are not really the right size, they're not the right taste or color or whatever it is that people are looking for. Color is probably a bad thing to use. But conceptually, you've got this gigantic fishing net. And now these refinement tools are trying to help people segregate what's in that net to get rid of probably most of it, because there's a mismatch on most of it. Because they're looking for like the top 1/10 of 1% for what that job requires. And maybe AI can take it a certain place, but then Joe, you qualified as in, well, then you get to the point of the real, hey, the rubber's meeting the road. What happens to the resume that is really good, but the person behind it is not? Or the resume is really not good, but the person behind it is really good.
Good point.
Either way works, right? So I'll just tell you something that I thought of here, which I thought, I should do this. I should let you do this because you're the expert. Find 10 people.
Wait, give me a pen.
Let's give me a pen. I'll give you a pen. Find 10 people that are like me. I just want to understand who I am in the market. Not that I'm available. Well, maybe for the right price.
That's a good.
But think about it for a second, because my resume changed over time. When I started, like I go back, I was teaching a course on appellate advocacy. My wife was cracking up because she said I was telling a story about working for a judge. And the judge was really a sophisticated guy who was then my age, but of course I said he was a really old guy. And she says, he was probably your age.
Yeah.
She was laughing. And I said, he was so smart. And he would say to me, Jack, because I was just a young lawyer, just a young guy working for him. And I would write the draft opinion. He'd say, you got this wrong, you got that wrong, fix this, fix that. And he was an excellent writer. Everything was always rewritten. He had been a senior partner at a big law firm, managing a lot of people, but he tried cases and he argued appeals, and he was a very brilliant guy. Very nerdy, but very brilliant. And he said, there's never a case where anyone's perfectly right or anyone's perfectly... He said, well, maybe Manson, but that's like a rare event.
Yeah.
And even he didn't pull the trigger. I mean, he didn't kill those people.
Right.
He just persuaded a bunch of wacky people to kill people. But he said to me, you have to be able as an advocate to pick the facts and law that really support the cause and then present it in a way that is understandable. And that is the art.
Right.
And, I learned that, and I was trying to teach that to a group of younger lawyers. And I said, we should require people to work for judges before they actually become lawyers. But we don't do that these days. But I think to myself, if you took a snapshot of me back in the 1970s when I was doing this, it's a really different resume and a different person than where I am now 40 years later. And if you took a snapshot every 10 years, every decade, it'd be a different person, because then I'm a worker bee at a nice Silicon Valley law firm that's starting Apple Computer and doing a lot of things. Then I'm a partner, and then I'm starting my own firm, and then I'm growing a firm, and now I'm maybe an elder statesman or something. I just finished a trial in a case. Everyone was like, wow, we didn't realize. I said, yeah, it only took about 40 years to get here. And they were like, and so I think to myself, well, who would I be compared with? And I wonder, how would you do that?
So it's two things just jumped out at me.
Yes.
What's interesting about these tools...
You could tell I'm looking for a job, right? It sounds like I'm looking for a job.
No, but what's interesting about what you just said is,
Yes.
so these CRMs, a company has an applicant tracking system that ostensibly has captured all the data, all the names and profiles of everybody that's applied over the last 10 years. And by the way, when you applied 4 years ago, you were here, and now you're here.
Yes.
So these tools come in, they refresh all the data, and now, oh my God, Jack wasn't a fit then, but now Jack's at Google, and Jack built a piano, and Jack's amazing, so let's bring Jack in.
So this is the dossier is being kept.
So not every, there's a tool called Eightfold that it's just Eightfold. It's brilliant. It updates everyone's profile every minute or every second or however often you want to do it.
Is it E-I-G-H-T?
It's the number 8 and then fold. Actually, maybe it is Eightfold. Maybe it's that. Spell it out.
Oh, I gotta write it. Okay.
The other thing that you said that struck me is so it used to be The LinkedIn model is they'd have seat licenses. You give me $9,000, I'll give you access to everybody on
Yes.
LinkedIn, whether you're connected to them or not.
Yes.
Well, now it doesn't matter. LinkedIn has this great model where let's call it, they call it an enterprise deal where
Yes.
it doesn't matter. Everyone gets a seat license. Everyone's a recruiter. But the point I'm trying to make is sourcing has become so. Companies used to pay a sourcer $120,000 to go through all these LinkedIn profiles.
Yes.
Jack's good,
Yes.
Joe's good, Andrew's okay.
Yes.
Now machines do it, and
Yes.
these tools do it, and
Right.
people are literally sourcers, recruiters are being displaced
Right.
and replaced by technology.
Well, don't they move up the
Amazing.
full chain? I mean, I'm curious because Joe's going to be starting to hire as he scales. I think he's too small to use these tools. Would he use
Oh, yeah, no,
tools? Would
no.
he use them through you? Would he say to you, "These are the 5 different positions I have"?
Joe's probably I would have to defer to
Yeah.
you. These are companies like, say, Genentech, Italian
okay.
Research
Big,
Associates,
big
or
hires.
Google's for engineers,
Okay.
firms. They're commoditizing it. Joe's at a point where you really want to make sure. See, that's the other thing that you said that's very important. A wrong hire or a bad hire
Yes.
is very costly.
Yes.
So as much as you can do on the front end to screen out the bad fish,
Yes.
the better, because
Yes.
so there's a bit of that. But I think Joe's at a point where he wants to be incredibly intentional and thoughtful, maybe executive search to
Yes.
begin with, or
Yes.
referrals. Yeah, these tools are pretty expensive.
But what I see often, and I'll just say this, and Joe, you react to it, and then Andrew react to it. I see a lot of founders that use what I call sort of if the person shows up at the right time on the right day with the right smile, I'm going to hire them. Because it's a little bit like, I don't have the time. But if I might even meet them in a restaurant or a bar, but they seem to be smart and they seem interested,
Right.
and this is the kicker, they're willing to defer their salary for stock. Bing, bing, bing.
Yeah.
It's like, and I see that all the time, which is, how'd you end up with this team? It seems like a bunch of mismatched people. Well, we didn't have
Uber, it was an Uber.
we were driving in an Uber.
This guy rode by me on a bike, threw a card
It's
in
like
my
you're my
window.
marketing guy.
No, seriously. They say, well, the truth is, we didn't have salaries. This guy was between jobs, this gal was between jobs, and they were willing to work for equity.
right.
And so I needed to have somebody that was, just able to read an email and do something based on email. We use all these tools like Slack. Now law firms are using Slack. And it's like, well, what does Slack do? They call it the byline, where the work gets done. Well, Slack enables you to get rid of the multiple emails and just sort of SMS text. This has to be done by this date, and then put a tag on it. So you have essentially a follow-up. Well, that's good. That's helpful. That's project management. But someone's got to do the work.
Right.
Someone's got to do
yeah.
the actual work behind that message.
There's so much that goes into this, and Andrew is the expert, and he could dive even deeper. But what I learned years ago in my mortgage business, when I did a lousy job at hiring, and then went through some coaching and teaching and reading and strength finders and all that, what I realized is I was hiring people like me. I don't need anybody like this. I don't need any more people.
That's good.
See, we have a tendency, if we're not aware,
Yes.
hey, I like that guy.
Yes.
He's kind of like me. I think I'll hire him. But I don't need another
Bad
me.
hire.
I need
Well,
someone.
Bad hire.
it depends how
Wrong
far
position.
the Uber's going.
So because you want a diversity of capabilities. So if you're good at the ideation, you want someone that's good at the
Right,
implementation.
so just on a small
team.
scale, and Andrew could expand
Yes.
on this, but on a small scale, what I learned is I got really good at, I know what I do well. In my business, I'm the revenue generator, so
Yes.
I need to be spending 80% of my time functions, activities that generate
Yes.
revenue through the door.
Yes.
So I had to bring in people to help me support that
Yes.
activity
Right.
that comes in through the door.
Yes.
So those are administrative people,
Right.
fast thinkers, people
Right.
that can multitask, good with people,
Right.
all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
And so, but that took me years to figure that out. But
Yes.
now at a larger scale, when we're talking about hiring the right people for a startup, those are some unique people as well, right? The startup people aren't the kind of people that are not going to go to work for 8 to 5 and punch in and.
Well, you're both making good points. To Jack's point, when
Yeah.
you're at a smaller size, it is the right place, right time, right.
Rough and
Yeah.
tumble.
Yeah, and
Rough
also,
tumble.
you're willing to forgive stuff
Yes.
or do it for equity,
Yes.
so the bar gets a little bit lower.
Yes.
But to Joe's point, there is a proclivity for smaller companies and people that maybe haven't been hiring for a long time to grow and expand in a like manner, and you really do want complementary skills and
Exactly.
contrast, so it's not everybody, because it's important to be united and aligned, but it's also important to have different perspectives.
Right.
Just the three of us here.
Right. I mean, I'll tell you the other place this comes up, and I see it all the time. We see our clients get to a certain stage, and then they say, okay, we're going to get to a liquidity event. We're going to sell. We're going to merge. We're going to acquire. We're going to do something. And I say, the hardest part of that is making the cultures between the different organizations
good
work.
point.
You know this,
Good
right?
point.
So at the other end, when the business actually does scale and does succeed, and now it's going to get to an exit, or it's going to help another company get to an exit, and it's going to get bigger. The big issue becomes, and I'm on the board of a company that's sort of facing that issue right now, and the board members are like, yeah, the numbers look great, everything looks great. And I'd say, you know what? Let's think with the culture level. Are we going to match culturally, because we do things a certain way here, and that other company, an East Coast company, it may not do things the same way. And oftentimes when there's culture clash, the talent walks out the door, and you can't hold them. You can't hold them. All of a sudden the deal closes. There's a film going on, a series going on. Each of you should watch it, because it's a classic example of what happens badly in corporate America. It's called Succession. It's an HBO show. I've been religiously watching it, and Dr. Lee Suter, my wife, has been religiously watching it, and we've been laughing about, we've seen this case, we've seen that case, we've seen this case, and we were like, we should be the podcast people about this show. I said, let me search and find out if someone's doing it. Sure enough, there's someone doing it. There's a bunch of people who really don't really know. They're going to probably sue me for saying this, but they really don't know business that well.
Yeah.
They're sort of, they're sort of entertainment people. They're like ad-libbing it. They don't really understand the underlying business issue that the show is trying to explain.
Right.
But they're doing a decent job of kind of describing the show, but they're not getting to the nitty-gritty of what's actually going on from a corporate point of view that they're trying to explain. And I say to myself, there are lawyers that could do a good job of giving an education about corporate law using a show like that.
Good point.
And the interesting part is, when I look at some of the issues that come up, they're people issues all the time. It's a big deal. You can make a great Tesla, but you cannot get a great Tesla engineer to stay with Tesla if he doesn't like the leadership of Tesla.
Right.
I mean, a lot of what's happening is they like the leadership of Tesla, but man, if they decide they don't like it, they exit.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal.
Years ago, one of the best books I read when I was getting into management and hiring people more responsible was Herb Kelleher, famous started Southwest Airlines.
Sure.
Everybody was envious on how they hired these people.
Yes.
They were one of the first companies to call it the human resources something else. I think it was people something. But
Chief People Officer.
Something. But
CPO.
In his book he wrote, one of the things that'll stick with me forever, and I know this is not the same when you're talking about engineers and scientists and attorneys and such, but his big thing was hire for attitude and train for skill.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, dude.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Yes.
His take was, most of the positions, right?
Yes, at an airline.
Find the right person.
Right.
With a great attitude, team player, all those, and you could train them to do this.
Right.
Right?
It's true.
I mean, it sounds simplistic. Andrew, you live in this world.
No, I didn't read that book, but I've lived that. I can teach you how to type, and I can teach you how to answer the phone, but I can't teach you how to care or be responsible or have a positive attitude.
Right.
So,
in fact, one of the things that we can wrap up on this notion, I remember when we were hiring, as we were growing this law firm, I think I was lawyer number 12 or so there, and it was a good firm. I mean, it was a bunch of New York lawyers. I came from New York. We were growing this firm, and we used to say, we want to hire people that actually understand what law firms do. And there was someone that said, well, do we understand what a law firm does? And someone said, yeah, I think we actually do. Funny. And I remember having that conversation and saying, you know what a law firm does? It cares about a client. And the client should know that you care about him or her or it, if it's an entity, which gets a little track. And what we would start to do is we interview people, we would say, and I remember because Blake was one of the people that would say this to people, do you know what a law firm does? Like that would be an opening question. And if you got someone that said, no, I don't really have the foggiest idea, that was like a big... the next 5 hires are critically more important than the next 10 behind that, or the next 20 behind those 10.
Absolutely.
It's like the foundational hires set the tone and the culture. So if anything, spend more time worrying about that, right?
That's a really good
and
point.
yet a lot of founders will be like, I'm trying to get customers, I'm trying to deal with banks, I'm trying to deal with financing, I'm dealing with investors. There's so many other stakeholders in the business, but this becomes a pretty important function. And then the final point I make before we wrap up is, I don't think these tools are relevant at all when you're at a relatively small scale, like you're under 100 people or under 50.
Right.
There's some number, you probably know the number better than I do, but you're not really fishing for, well, I don't know how to express it, you should express it, but it's a more hand-picked kind of thing at this early stage.
Yeah,
right?
it's what you said, it's the Uber metaphor.
Yes.
It's what you mentioned is a great point, like get complementary skill sets. You know what you're good at. You don't need someone that's good at what you're good at. You need someone that's good at managing the other stuff.
Yes.
But to your point, Jack, Intuit's going to be hiring a bunch of accountants for tax season. We know that, so a tool like Eightfold that shuffles the deck and ranks everybody's very. Joe's going to hire 5 people. Well, then we don't need it. So
but wouldn't Joe get something if you ran? Give me more people like Joe. Is there a button that can, or give me more people like Jack? Is there a button you can press that says give me more people that complement Joe?
That's actually not
a good idea, right?
It's a really good idea
because I want to see where are my gaps based on what the data is suggesting. The sort of review. Well, here's 10 other people or 9. So here's the people that and then who are the complements? And that may say something about how you team with other people.
So
right?
I'll say real quickly, because I'm a big fan of strength finders.
Yes.
And I'm sure maybe there's technology that works with AI in this respect.
Yes.
But when you take strength finders, it not only identifies your top 5 skills,
Yes.
but then it goes through and tells you complementary what other people with their top skills would match well with what you're doing.
So the next jump would be it jumps
thing.
into LinkedIn and it pulls.
Probably does somewhere.
Like that's what I'm saying. Yeah. You're the guy who's been in this for 20, 30 years. Is that
well, assessment's a big thing.
Right.
So you can do it based on a job description. You could do it on a role, both ideally. The other interesting thing that you brought up, so all these companies are focused and spending mad money on these artificial intelligence ranking matching platforms.
Right.
I had a guy call me the other day. He said, and he's a smart guy. He's a developer. He helped me with BA jobs a number of years ago. And he said, I tried to apply for a job on LinkedIn. It's ridiculous. So I built this little app that helps me apply to the right jobs. Nothing causes more harm than someone that just sprays their resume to a bunch of jobs they're not a good fit for. They're automatically kicked out of the ATS. And employers really dislike it.
ATS is the applicant tracking system.
Thank you. So I thought that's brilliant because he's doing the same thing. He's just doing it on the front end. So he's saying, "Hey," so I said, "Terry, you got to call LinkedIn or Indeed or one of these aggregators and help them."
Terry, you got to go see Jack and get a patent first, and then call.
Well, but it's just here again. It's all going back to what you're going to land the plane. It's not just when the company hires the right person, the person takes the right career, and that's the name of the game.
So Andrew, tell people where you're at, and then we'll have Joe do the same, and we'll wrap up.
Andrew, you find me on LinkedIn. Andrew Gardiner, Gardiner.
Are you with that famous Gardiner family, that billionaires?
Gardinier? No,
yeah, exactly.
No. I'm Andy Gardenhose in high school. And just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to help.
But you just came from your estate in Maine. Your family owns billions in real estate in Maine. Do I have that right? Massachusetts.
Cohasset.
You're looking very healthy and tan.
I'm not sure if Jack's giving you the right exposure here today.
No, Andrew is great, and Andrew is really like living the life he wants to live.
That's right.
Good for you. That's true.
It's what you said earlier. It's and you too. It's not how you start. It's how you finish.
Right. Absolutely. So you love the work.
I do.
You're doing what you love. And you're doing it every day, and you love it.
Thanks, Jack.
Okay. And Joe, tell us more about where you're at.
You go to bundleselect.com. That's bundleselect.com, or joe@bundleselect.com. And also say before we end the show, Jack, that any of these aspiring entrepreneurs out there or people thinking about starting a company, they really need to contact someone like you at your law firm.
Well, I appreciate that, and
Yeah.
I actually give out. You'll notice these gentlemen are younger than me. I actually still give out a phone number. You remember
That's
that?
smart.
That was 9 digits.
It's coming full
Is it 9
circle.
or 10? 650-327-9800. It's funny because I said to my grandkids, I can't believe
dear.
grandkids. I said, well, how are you using your phone? And they were like, we don't make calls on it.
Oh, I know.
Oh, that drives
We
me
never make
nuts.
calls
That
on
drives
it.
me
They were
nuts.
laughing. I said, well, would you call me? I says, well, we don't have your number.
Right.
And I said, well, get a pen and paper. I was almost ready for them to say, what's a pen? What's paper? But they did take my phone number. I'll tell you, they haven't called me yet. It's kind of funny. It's all email.
Call.
Yeah,
Call.
That's like my mom. You never call. And so it's 650-327-9800, and it's jrusso@computerlaw.com. And yes, we do answer emails. We do pick up the phone. We do actually even meet people in person. And we have facilities now, including this beautiful
Yes,
radio room.
I can
I want to
vouch.
thank you guys. And we have actually someone that's helping us. Loran, we give you a round of applause, too. Thank you very much. Anytime a sound thing, right? Exactly. Thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it. What's the Valley Current in Palo Alto? Check us out on Facebook. We're the Valley Current on Facebook, and on YouTube, we're the Valley Current at gmail.com. And we have an Instagram account.
Wow,
Is that
bingo.
right? Wow, bing,
Yeah,
bing, bing,
social
bing,
media.
That's really cool, Loran. Thank you for
Thank
doing
you.
that. Sure. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye, fellas.
Wow, you guys are great.
That was
man.
fun.